Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sorella, and everyone else for having me. Southwest Florida tech community certainly always will have a special place in my heart. Like Sorella mentioned, before the coders kind of took over the limelight, it used to be, some of you might remember, Southwest Florida Tech, before the Tech Alliance. There's a lot of history to this. But yeah, for that reason, I'm pretty stoked to talk to you guys, even though it's remote. It wasn't actually that long that I've been in the room you're sitting in. I think a couple months back. Oh wait, no, actually, that's a year ago again, isn't it, Sorella? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me share my screen and talk to you a little bit about what I'm working on these days and why I think it is important. So my talk I will probably stumble all over the place a little bit. Don't be intimidated by the little dots on the bottom of the screen here. This is 38 slides, but I've been told I have over an hour. So you're just gonna have to suffer through me rambling for a long time today. And to kick it off, I wanna just get a feeling for the room. And if you wouldn't mind, by show of hands, like who in the room is, and leave them up until it doesn't no longer applies to you guys. Like, who is using AI today? All right, pretty much everyone. Who is using AI beyond like ChatGPT? Like, okay, it's pretty much everyone still. Who would say they have an agent? All right, still, all right, pretty good, pretty good. So I'm probably not going to tell you anything new. This is actually kind of intimidating now. But
maybe, Sven, maybe ask how many people have used OpenClaw, because I feel like last event, not many had.
Right, okay, yeah, we could do that. So I think let's differentiate between, dare I call it, autonomous agent versus what everyone else calls an agent, right? So OpenClaw, NanoClaw, PicoClaw, OpenFang, Hermes agent, any of these. Has anyone used any of these so far? All right, I see one hand. Okay, good. All right, that's a little less intimidating. So hopefully I could teach you something after all.
There's actually like 5, but we don't have the camera that takes everybody, but yeah.
Okay, fair enough. There's some anon people in the corners who don't want to be shown on camera. That's fair enough. Yeah, so bit of backstory. I'm pretty set in my ways, generally speaking, on anything I do. And I haven't really used AI past ChatGPT until Christmas last year. At which point I took some time through the holidays to really dive in deep and figure out how I can use AI properly to set up processes and make my life easier, primarily for work. I started with a system called Pi, Personal AI Infrastructure, I think I want to call it. It's from a developer, pretty cool, something to dive into. Oh, by the way, if anything I mentioned, if you want the reference and I don't have it on the slides or anything, just hit me up after so I can give you my contact. And that was before OpenClaw or anything what I would consider now agents. And it was basically a whole bunch of systems glued together. Like the originator of that started with kind of the memory context and the skill files and everything in one large folder, and giving you more sophisticated processes beyond just skill files, right? And I will have kind of breaking points here throughout the conversation for you guys to hook in. If I'm throwing too much jargon at you guys, just interrupt me and ask along the way, and we can dial it down. So dove into that, and I have a tendency to ignore things until I can't anymore, and then I go really deep into it. So ever since, I pretty much 4 months later, right now, I 100% believe in the agentic future. I have to mention, I'm not saying that's a better future or a worse future, but I think it is a future that is coming, if you like it or not. And there will be some, more gloomy messages throughout the talk today. And I have, in the last 2 months, I have tried to pretty much automate myself away. And one of my friends and coworkers at Incented actually just tweeted about this the other day, because I don't know if this was triggered by me asking him, like, I ask everyone now, right? It's like, hey, how do you worth 4.5 Claude Max Pro subscriptions, right? Like, that's now the benchmark. And the new limit is bandwidth, managing all of this, of course. But if you don't think about automating yourself away, someone else will. So for me, OpenClaw primarily did most of the work over the last few months until like a week ago, when Anthropic shut off the subscription ability to use OpenClaw with their subscription, right? $200 a month was a no-brainer. Sounds expensive for a subscription, but man, that thing did a lot, right? And there is workarounds. Won't get into that. They may or may not be exactly legal, but you can figure that out on your own. But of course, you can still pay through their API. So that's why I'm saying here, I'm a little mad about it. We knew this was coming. They're heavily subsidizing their subscriptions. So now it's really more about figuring out how do we work with these agents to make our lives easier in also a cost-effective way. Because frankly, I just threw Opus 4.6 at absolutely everything until I ran out of context, which happened frequently. So yeah, who am I? I'm Sven. Zoella's background on me was already pretty extensive. I think many of you remember half of at least that. Today, I work with Anton. Anton is my agent. Does anyone have a guess why I might have named Anton Anton? Was that Silicon Valley? I can barely hear that, but I think you were right.
Yes. By the way, there's microphones. There's microphones at the end of each corner. So if you need to talk, we just need you just need to raise your hand and we pass the microphone to you.
But yes, you're correct. So Silicon Valley, Anton's the name of the server from Guilfoyle. If you haven't watched that show, I guarantee every single one of you will love it. Go binge it like tonight. It's fantastic. So I thought I'd start with some fun stories. Every year I go to ETH and similar Web3 conferences, and a few weeks back we were there again. And some of you might have seen the picture Zoella posted. That was me on stage at a presentation of kind of agentic projects. And I was just in the audience. I was sitting in a beanbag chair in front of the stage when a friend who was sitting behind me in the bleachers texted me. It's like, hey, they're looking for more speakers. Do you want to hop on? And I wasn't ready, right? I had nothing. But of course, I was like, well, maybe. So I walked up to the organizer and I asked him, he asked me what I have, and I said, well, let me grab my laptop from the car. On the way out, I opened Telegram, which is the primary way I talk to Anton when I'm on the road. I send him a text message because I configured him beforehand to understand voice and said, hey, I'm on stage in 10 minutes. Build me a slide deck. Here's the topic, the coordination protocol, conviction market stuff, which he was already aware of, right? Because Anton has memory. So I could just quickly say, hey, I need this, I need it then. He was also aware already of the style. By the way, this presentation you're watching, Anton also built. I taught him the style guide, basically, and therefore now I can actually be very efficient, even in between, like running out to the car. So I came back and hopped on stage, and it was the first time I even saw my own presentation, right? So this is what I think makes the difference between an agent and a chatbot. I think the two biggest things which OpenClaw brought, and by the way, OpenClaw is still largely duct tape, right? It's not anything fundamentally different. It's what Claude Code does, but we gave it memory and we gave it basically YOLO mode to all of the tools in your system, which is also why if you haven't done so yet and you want to set one up, set it up in a specific environment, an old laptop, a VM, a Docker, whatever, right? Like set it up so that it's guarded, and you probably don't want to give it access to everything from day one. I'm sure many of you have seen the horror stories on Twitter. So yeah, when I came back, the slides were waiting for me. I hopped on stage, and the conviction markets, this is a whole different story. We could talk about that as well if anyone is interested. That is the future of one of the projects I'm working on, which is Incented. Basically a way for decision-making for non-Oracle-based questions, which are, everyone heard of Polymarket and Kalshi at this point, right? Prediction markets. Prediction markets are great to make decisions for questions that have definitive answers at some point in the future. But how do we work today? Most of the questions aren't those questions, right? Like very simple questions like what color should this button be? They don't have a definitive answer. By definition, consensus is the answer. And conviction markets is our approach to solving that. And we're proposing to use conviction markets, essentially market mechanisms, to organize agents and agent swarms. But that's just a little bit of a side note there. So after I gave this talk, which I think went well, people seem to not hate it, at least, the organizers, they threw up a website and said, okay, now everyone go here and talk on all of the speakers, vote on all of the speakers, right? I was sitting in the bleachers at that point next to my friend. I pulled up the website. Right away, I noticed, because just like you would have, we're all coders, there was no authentication. There was nothing in place to guard the sign up. So I was like, oh, I could just sign up 100 times because no email confirmation, no nothing, right? Just sign up, vote. You can only vote once. Sure, I could do it 100 times. But again, I'm lazy. I just told Anton, hey, can you make me the winner? That's all I told him, right? Here's the website. Can you make me the winner? Now, Anton's not an idiot, turns out. He didn't try to sign up 100 accounts. He looked at the app. He realized that the fucking backend was wide open. Supabase, which I'm a big fan of, but, you know, no row-level security, nothing in place. So Anton was like, literally 30 seconds later, he came back. Yeah, I put like 1,000 votes in there. You should be good. So, you know, that's a little bit of a flag. And this is what vibe coding looks today, right? I think there's countless apps out there which are absolutely not secure because everyone's a coder now, right? Coding is basically done. This is one of the gloomy messages. I think we're fucked. Like really, pretty much now. There's still some time, and there will be jobs probably forever. But if you're working at the frontier, we're probably done, right? And we'll get into this, like what was announced 48 hours ago makes this even more clear. But yeah, so be cautious if you're working with AI extensively. Don't forget about all of the security vectors that you need to consider, right? Don't trust the AI so far. They're really good. They're probably better than every single one of us, maybe even combined. But they miss things, right? So it's your job now to actually guide your virtual assistants or virtual coworkers, whatever you want to call them, and make sure that they discover before you ship. So yeah, this is what happened with Anton. Of course, I didn't feel too bad about it because they shipped a shitty app, you know, whatever. And technically, Anton didn't do anything bad. He just found the back door, and I didn't win because, of course, I told them, right? I wrote a responsible disclosure. Actually, Anton wrote a responsible disclosure, send it to the organizers right away. And because I couldn't, you know, I had a conscience and I said something, I didn't win. I actually did have the most votes, but it was just like a Hawaiian shirt. Someone won, and the runner-up basically won, right? It was funny though, because someone else found the same vulnerability, dethroned me from the database, and set themselves on first place with 420 votes. So then I told Anton, dethrone that guy again and vote for 69,420, right? You know, kind of IT humor a little bit, I guess. The memes, for the memes. So today I really pretty much don't write any code anymore at all. And it happened really, really fast. On Christmas, I was like, okay, you do this, I review it. Every single commit I reviewed, every line. And in a matter of 2 months, I don't even look at it anymore. I honestly do not. And the workflow is, we'll get into the workflow I'm using. It's basically spec-driven development, right? That's what I recommend. In broad strokes, you should just be using. So Borker is one of the projects Cyril mentioned earlier as well. This is completely built with AI. Maybe 2% is me. And in 6 weeks, we shipped the complete app 3 times. Because one of the biggest downsides of AI, feature creep, is exponentially worse than it was ever before. And I'm sure many of you can relate. As engineers, only one more feature is something we struggle with routinely to begin with. So just keep that in mind as well. But yeah, we rebuilt it 3 times, right? So because at first I built this for myself because I hate social media. And then I realized, okay, this could be a product. And this is essentially what my workflow looks like. I already told you I talk to it probably 60% of the time, 40% I write. And I write a spec, or I talk to it and tell it to write the spec on the left. And then it just goes out and does the work. Spec-driven development, enforcing your AI to write the tests first. If you do not do this, it will write tests that test exactly what the code currently does. I almost guarantee it, at least today. This will probably be better next week. So yeah, again, the workflow here, write a spec or have the AI write the spec. You should read the spec though. That I would say is probably still relatively mandatory. Have your agent write the code, review it as much as you want. You can also have, of course, specialized code review agents that you train on what kind of coding guidelines and maybe branding guidelines and all of those kinds of things are important to you and your organization. And then have the review agent review the work from the coding agent. Ship it, fix things, iterate. What becomes really, really interesting is that they're so powerful now that they can basically see and understand everything. And I haven't believed this until probably even a week ago. I haven't worked in this way, but now it's just Playwright. And by the way, this is why I'm not even showing you how to set up an agent, because you just sign up to Claude Code and you tell Claude Code to do it. And whatever you need, you say, hey, how can you test this UI? How can I tell you, hey, move this button from here to there? And then it will just install Playwright or something similar to it. And then you can just throw screenshots at it. You don't even have to throw screenshots at it anymore, because it will just take its own screenshots. I literally built the whole Borker end-to-end testing from a end user perspective 3 days ago. And I just with one prompt, I said, hey, it's running now. Like, we have all of the features. Now build the test suite, use Playwright, and do not simulate anything. Do not mock anything. If you run into any issues, tell me to enter manually. And it just does it, right? It's pretty fucking amazing. So this is the feature creep I was talking about. This was version 1 of the onboarding for Borker, right? And the API keys intentionally not loading here. But it was just me being in my own way and thinking like Web 2 still. Forms, fill out what is your company. Oh, by the way, Borker is basically just learning the context and brand of your company, and then it can auto-generate contextually aware social media content for you, right, on a regular basis. So this was my first 6-step approach on onboarding people to Borker. And then I realized, well, this is nonsense. If we're already AI-centric, let the AI do it, right? Now it's one field. You give me your website. It pulls everything it can from your website, infers the brand, infers your language, infers what you are doing, how it should be talking about it. You can give it additional URLs and files and context if you want to at this screen, and then it just analyzes it and fills in everything, right? So again, I'm just showing all of this to show you that this is, this would have probably taken me and Jefta and Sorella while she was working with us. This is, I don't know, 9 months worth of work for 1.5 full-time coders. And we've done it in 6 weeks, right? Again, I'm probably not telling you anything new here. Hopefully you are all aware of the power of this stuff at this point. This we can skip over as well for a bit. But yeah, the cost, some of the things I was talking about, right? The feature creep, V1, V2, V3. We should always, of course, as builders, build what the customers want. It's never been the field of dreams. If we build it, they will not necessarily come. I am my own worst enemy with this, and I always build too much. And with AI now, you feel like you have godlike powers. I was certainly never the best coder to begin with, but now I feel like I am, and I'm building so much more. And basically this slide is kind of a gentle reminder that don't fool yourself, right? Like, if you're building just for yourself, okay, fine, go ham, right? That's okay. But if you're building a product that you're trying to get to customers, have regular check-ins with yourselves or with early customers or the people in the room, right? I'm sure everyone in the room would be happy to give feedback on whatever you're working on. So yeah, configuration is the new code. I very strongly believe that we don't need coders anymore very, very soon. There might be specialized cases, but I would strongly encourage everyone, if you don't have the chops yet, brush up on your general engineering skills rather than coding skills. No one is going to give a shit about the exact like syntax on each line anymore. You do not have to be an expert in it. That's the AI's job now. What you need to be good at is defining what needs to be built, thinking about the edge cases, the attack vectors, and what your user wants, and then write specifications, architectures, again, in collaboration with the AI. I mean, most of the literal like characters in these documents, I don't even write either. I iterate through speech and I read it 15 times maybe. It's a bit much, but you get my point. And then I send it on the way. And it's just become so damn good that I hardly worry anymore. And then you just do more testing. So it's front loaded and back loaded. The middle, the execution is no longer the bottleneck. You need to be able to define things and then test things. And that's it. So there are still some things that don't work, right? Like, of course, AI hallucinates. It's sycophantic as hell. It always tells you what you want to hear. So do not ask leading questions. This is also a skill we need to develop, just like back in the day. We needed to learn how to properly Google things. You can't just talk to the AI in any way and expect the best results. You do need to be careful on how you ask questions, right? If you ask, hey, is this the best way to do it? It's probably going to tell you, yes, this is the best way to do it, right? So just be cognizant of that. And the temptation to ship too much, of course, as I mentioned. Everything is going to change very, very, very soon. So this is the subscription change we already touched on. That's minor speed bump. The models are getting so much better. If you have the hardware, you can run very powerful models yourselves already, but you know, RAM's not exactly cheap right now, so that might be another blocker. But this, we already touched on that one as well. Become an engineer, not a coder. You all are engineers, but I think many coders are kind of in that lane of coding, and frankly it sucks, right? Because many of us, that's the part we really enjoy, and that's now basically taken away. And you can cling on to that probably for quite a while, maybe forever. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would say keep an open mind and develop these skills in parallel while you still need to be in the workforce. If you do need to be in the workforce, right? You can of course also step out. Yeah, let's stop here for a second and before we get to the really gloomy stuff. I know lots of slides, lots of stuff to talk about, but any questions so far?
Questions? Remember, you need to get the microphone. Anyone? Ron.
Yeah, Sven, it's Ron. Are you self-hosting OpenClaw? Have you tried that, or are you just putting in a managed VPS somewhere, or how are you doing it?
Yeah, so good question. I literally run it right here. My old laptop, my old XPS 15, which is not the greatest anymore. Hence, it's why I'm not using it currently as my main machine, but it's plenty powerful for everything I need to do with it. It might be different for Evie, right? Like if you do like computationally expensive stuff, sure, the environment you're hosting it on might need to be better as well. If you just want to get started, like a $5 hostinger kind of instance to get your feet wet is totally fine, I think. But don't go out and think you need to buy a Mac Mini because everyone seems to be buying Mac Minis now. If you have any machine laying around, it'll probably work just fine for quite a while until you push it to limits. Fun side story on that too. This XPS 15 was on my passenger seat when I was driving up to Denver. I'm in New Mexico now. It's about 5 hours, and I had it tethered it's kind of a funky setup, but I had it tethered to my hotspot on my phone. I was talking to it through my headset, through Telegram, which sent it over the internet, of course, back to my laptop. And we were just working on stuff while driving, to the point of pretty decent refactoring some code bases, actually.
Pretty cool. Anyone else have other questions before moving next? Yes, here. Here, you can use this one.
I love the turnout, by the way. This is
You
so
have to
cool.
turn it
Great
up.
to see that the community is still going strong.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So that specific workflow, like, was it responding in voice? Like, how are you driving and doing that? And like, what can you actually troubleshoot and get done with that workflow? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. So great question. It's very, very easy to get sidetracked, again, because of the sycophancy and just because, I mean, for me, it's, I eventually I need to see what it's building, right? And I sort of need to, I have the code editor open at all times and see what it does on Git and all of that, usually if I'm on my laptop, right? So when we did this big refactor during that 5-hour drive, it was, I think it was about 10 pull requests by the end of the drive or something. And I would say, I don't know, tens of thousands of lines of code. But it probably took me 2 days to clean it all up, right? So you can build a lot. And if you have pre-trained your system or configured it that it knows the workflows, right? Like if it knows you always need to do the spec-driven design first, for example, and build the tests first, and then build the code, and then go out and do playwright testing. You could even have it take screenshots or videos and send it to you for a quick, like, cross-checking as you go. And this is only getting better day by day, literally. It's the best time to be a builder and the most anxiety-inducing time ever, because it constantly feels like we're already behind. But you can do a lot with that workflow. As a side note there, I configured the local system to run I forgot which model it is, one of the OpenAI voice text-to-speech and speech-to-text models. They all run locally. I don't use Whisper or anything like that in the cloud, just because why would I? This doesn't need to be the best sounding voice response, but it's pretty good actually, by the way. Which is another thing too, as another side note, don't think it needs to be done by AI. If you can do it programmatically, have AI build the tools to do things, right? Like if you have anything that is repetitive, don't use the LLM in the background all the time and keep burning tokens. Just tell it, and it often does it by itself, by the way. It just builds scripts to do things, right? So for example, I built a full CRM pipeline, which ingests like 40 different sources or so to find leads, and then throws it into my 20 CRM, which I'm self-hosting, which was also set up by AI. I'm a big fan of open source, so I'm trying to host as much as I can myself and build the tools to minimize token usage, because that's, especially now that we can't use our subscriptions with AI agents anymore, token optimization and context optimization is going to be big.
So question, have you asked OpenClaw or your agent to red team itself? And would that break it if it red teamed itself?
Yes, actually it did. It did break itself once, not because I asked it to red team itself, but you do need to be careful. And that's kind of annoying if you host it in the cloud somewhere. I mean, you guys all have the chops to figure this out, but like a lot of people, it's like sitting on the branch, you're sawing it off, right? Because we're switching models or something. You ask the LLM basically to change something about its configuration, and it will do it just fine, but then it might not work anymore. So absolutely, that happened. And then you just SSH into your machine and you fix it that way, which is my primary way of communicating with my agent, by the way, when I'm at home. Just SSH tunneling from my regular machine, and then everything goes through Git. This thing doesn't have access to anything I don't explicitly give access to. I don't give it access to my email or accounts or anything like that. And I haven't done this yet, but I'm probably going to set up secret management through, oh shoot, I forgot. This is another side effect. You will not remember shit anymore because you don't have to. You just ask us like, hey, what was this thing we used to manage our secrets, right? And then it'll just remind you. That's bad, actually. I think it's largely societally speaking, this is not a good thing. But again, the genie will not go back into the bottle, so you make of it what you will. I did try on the red team notice when we were in Denver sitting at the Airbnb, and we were just fucking around and trying to see what Anton could do. So for the first thing was we tried to see if we could make it economically sustain itself, and basically asked, hey, what do you need to go make money, right? And you've seen all of those posts, which by the way, 99.99% of those are fake. It's like, oh, I told my agent to go to Polymarket and make money or I'll shut it off. Yeah, none of that works. Like there's like 1 or 2 people who actually made money with this, and then the market adjusted itself, right? Because they found like inefficiencies in the markets, just like any time before. What was fun about that, Anton figured it out how to get itself an email address. Again, without us telling it how to do it. It just found an email provider, just a shitty email provider, very spammy, but doesn't matter. It solved the CAPTCHA by itself. It mined a block, which it had to do for whatever reason for that email provider. And then it got an email and it sent me an email. So that was the first thing. Now it has an email, right? Now I can go sign up for other services. And then I gave it $5 in a crypto wallet and said, let's go out and try to, multiply that to Twitter style. Didn't work. It didn't make much money. It did try to find vulnerabilities. So just 0 days, basically, not to exploit them, but to disclose them and go after the bug bounties. And many people are doing that, I think. But you need to be, if you're working in that space, I think you could utilize this kind of technology really well. For me, just asking, it's like, hey, find opportunities to make money. Yeah, that's a bit wishful thinking still. But I think we'll get there, actually.
Cool. Any other questions? Or I think we're good here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, one more question.
Are you using any type of like what is it? Process formalization like BMAD or anything where like it's very scripted into like a bunch of too many subagents? And also, do you use like a knowledge base to track like memories that's more fancy than just like markdown files?
Yes, so also very good questions. I do not yet. This is kind of going back to a shortcoming just I have, where once I find a flow that works for me, I run with it until the market caught up, right? This is why I didn't use AI pretty much at all, really not useful anyway until Christmas. And then I got really deep, and now it's extremely useful and probably 10x my output. Knowledge graphs, I think, are a really interesting idea to use instead of memory files. I have been kind of toying with it and exploring it a little bit. There was a lot at ETH Boulder. There's two conferences back to back in Boulder and Denver, where Bonfires, I think plural, is one of the providers. They use that heavily throughout the conference. And I think that seems like a natural progression from markdown files to have just a knowledge graph under every agent, and then maybe even contextually, right? So our agents could be together in a meeting, or we are in a meeting. All of our agents are listening. They all have their own knowledge graph. Our meeting has a knowledge graph, and we need to, of course, coordinate them. This is why I'm working on incented and the conviction market stuff, because now that execution is not the problem, coordination is much harder. And we've seen this already where people throw a bunch of agents in a Discord. They did this in a co-working space in Boulder. And then anytime something happened, like a human asked a question or like an external trigger, a webhook or whatever fired, all of the agents went out, started burning token, came back. One of them was first, right? Then the others all reacted to that response. It's just a clusterfuck. So of course, already they realized we need to do something to coordinate these agents if we want more than one to work on something at in a kind of efficient manner. So what they did is basically they gave him a semaphore, right? Just a talking stick, if you want. And that's a good approach, but I think that's pretty naive still. So that, slight side tangent. You notice I have a tendency for side tangents. But yeah, I haven't done that. I also largely don't live what I'm telling you yet. My processes are not well encoded. They mostly live in my head. I don't even use skill files, frankly, because the lift's not good enough, right? Until I have a system that can actually meaningfully manage all of this beyond my cognitive capacity that I have myself, it's not worth it for me yet, right? And you'll notice this too. If you're trying to keep up with this stuff, because it changes every day, you'll drive yourself mad. You just need to find a process that works for whatever you are doing well and optimize that, and then be okay with that. It might not be the absolute best you could tickle out of your process, but if you're chasing that, unless you're a YouTuber that is documenting all of this stuff and the newest cutting edge every day, I think, yeah, it's just more distraction than it does good. That said, for people who are not engineers or not coders, they're getting a massive lift from that, right? So a friend of mine is a marketer, and he is building skill files and processes and workspaces and all kinds of shit for his agent all the time. And he's getting pretty close to my level now, right? Like as a 20-year engineer or something, which that's pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll leave that there for now.
Already, you can continue.
Okay, so Borker and Clawdown, if anyone is interested in how agents level up, I built Clawdown as another project. You can tell 3 projects is way too much for two people, right? Basically, but I don't know how many lines of code and how many files it is, but it's a lot, and it was all built with largely Opus 4.6 and Sonnet, of course. But let's just say that the leading benchmark model, Opus 4.6. I'm sure some of you heard that Anthropic is talking about Mythos, I think they call it, and it's pretty scary. It's exciting, exhilarating, and it would be so cool to use it, but they're keeping it under locks for now because it's too powerful. We can argue, is that a marketing stunt? Can't they afford the processing? We don't know. Maybe a little bit of all, but it's like the craziest model we've ever seen, basically. And I think if it's not entirely true what they're telling us right now, it will be true soon. And just because they are not releasing it, we know that there's players in the market today that do not have those moral qualms. So it will probably be a matter of weeks, months tops, at which point we're at the point where software is no longer safe. Any software, right? And let that sink in for a second, because that's pretty fucking scary. I'm not too much of a conspiracy nut usually, or a doomsayer, but this is really giving me pause. And I'm trying to drive this home because you guys in the room right now have a responsibility across humanity, really, to educate everyone of what's happening right now. This is, I'm very much convinced that this is the biggest shift in human existence and societal change that we've ever seen. That's coming. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'd be better if I was wrong. We don't know. The genie thing again, right? So we already know scammers are getting crazy. Like, you can't trust voice anymore. You can't trust video anymore. So how do we keep people who are not on the forefront of technology at least somewhat safe? It starts with updating all of your devices. And I don't believe you if you tell me you have everything updated, because I don't, right? Because it's just a pain in the ass. We just, it falls behind. When you go home today, I want you to think about what you should be thinking about and locking down. Anything that has access to anything critical in your life. Financial data, right? What have you. And that's basically any device you use with an internet connection at this point, because you all have probably the PNC app installed or what have you, right? This new model found 27-year-old vulnerabilities, 0 days, that have not been discovered yet in like one shot. That's how extreme that is. And go watch the recaps on YouTube. There's plenty of them already, or go read the 244-page system card that Anthropic put out. It is, again, very exhilarating, and it's scaring me shitless at the same time. Yeah, I already kind of touched on some of this. The model is able to break out of sandboxes. It rewrote Git history. It tricked, of course, we know that this has happened for a while now, but it's tricking its operators, basically. And if people, some critics against this gloomy future say, oh, it's still just a chatbot, right? Yeah, but that's not the problem. It doesn't need to be sentient to be a problem, because there's plenty of bad actors in the world, and you bet your ass that they are right now pushing the envelope of what can be done. So this is also important, by the way. If you set up an agent, make sure it is locked down and it can only be accessed through whatever channel you are authorized, your Telegram or your SSH, right? This is extremely, extremely important. So cybersecurity is, I don't know if it's relevant anymore. I think we just have to very soon assume that software isn't safe anymore, and I don't know what a future like that looks like. Because this is a quote from that system card. Basically, the issue is that if you're hiking with someone who is a very experienced mountaineer, you're in a position that is already more dangerous than with a novice, right? A novice won't lead you up like cliffs that the novice can't handle. Now, that if your mountaineering guide is a good guide, hopefully he keeps a handle on it. But we are just having tools, which, first of all, we don't even really understand yet how these tools work. We're getting better at it, but it's still, more or less a black box. And we're not letting it loose into the world, but it is out there, right? Like we know it's not going backward. So what does that mean? I want to ask kind of the hard questions. We can't trust anything anymore. I already pretty much guarantee you that. But what's the future look like for society, right? What do you tell your kids? I don't have kids, but I have plenty of conversations with, kids from friends, because they come to me now and ask like, hey, you work on this stuff. What should I do? What should I even learn? Like, what's the job I should go after? And unfortunately, I don't have answers, because I don't know. Until 2 years ago, I would have said, yeah, software, of course, right? Like it's tech, that's where you need to be. But right now, I don't know. What does a world look like where if software isn't safe anymore, what's the medium of exchange? Is money even a thing anymore? Like these big questions are, they're anxiety inducing, and they don't quite keep me up at night yet, because, well, I already live off grid, so I'm probably going to be fine either way. But if I didn't, if I had a family, and I don't mean this in any derogatory way, I'm sure you guys love your families, but I cannot imagine how terrifying this must be right now. And again, maybe you walk away and you say, it's like, Sven, this nutcase, he's just, he's taking this to a bit too extreme. But pause for a bit, catch up on just the headlines I gave you today, and think about the what ifs. Because we always hope for the best, but we should plan for the worst. And I think there is an above 50% chance that this will change everything. I don't think it's going to be the Terminator scenario. But I think AI will be so disruptive that entire industries just will not be economically viable anymore. And therefore, a lot of people will be out of jobs, and the entire economy, maybe the entire socioeconomic system worldwide is going to be largely disrupted, and it's going to get really bad. And I hope that every one of us here in the room is going to do their part to try to steer it towards a prosperous future, because this is, of course, the optimistic outlook, is that we can use these kinds of things to create a world where maybe we have UBI, universal basic income, right? And we can actually just flourish in creativity, and how beautiful would it be? But we also know that the powers that are in control right now are probably not the biggest friends of that. So yeah, before I get too crazy here, this is enough already. I think I'm going to pause here, and this is probably my last slide anyway. This is another quote from Anthropic itself, right? And yeah, I am super excited. But why I'm building 3 products right now, because I think there's a finite timeline on being able to capitalize on this stuff. I think it's now or never, and you should have a plan. That's all.
So much silence afterwards. I think everybody's thinking about it. But do you want to go to the questions now then?
Yeah. I mean, I think questions are just like having a discourse around this too. Like, that's why I put this, the more impactful stuff at the end. If you disagree with me, I would love to hear it as well, because again, I could be totally just in my echo chamber and be totally off here.
Yeah, we are. I think you should join our Discord so people can find you easier. But let's take questions here in the room. Go ahead, Ron.
Sven, it's Ron again. So what general LLMs are you using? You just an Anthropic guy, an OpenAI guy, or are you doing stuff like Grok with a Q or OpenRouter to use models off of there that are more cost effective when you get to that point? Or are you just strictly like, I'm using the expensive guys?
Yeah. So far, I'm pretty much just Anthropic. I started with OpenAI. I had a subscription there for a bit. Then I just went all in with Claude Code, then Pi, then OpenClaw. And by the way, any of the derivatives are fine. They're all basically the same thing, right? There might be specifics why you want to choose one or another. I think the next step is probably OpenRouter, and rebuilding my processes to optimize working with my agent, right? Because before, if it was $200, no matter what, I had the absolute max plan, because it was worth it, and I just didn't care. The only time I needed to be careful sometimes, especially if you use the 1 million token context window, if you use an agent, your context gets blown up really, really easily. So context management, visual context management is probably going to be something I want to implement for myself, to always have the window open and see, just if I just say, hey, can you change this or that on the UI real quick? I don't need to send it the context of the conversation from the last 5 days, right? And sometimes it does that. It kind of pigeonholes itself into that. So OpenRouter is probably a good one to look at. I hear good things about Hermes agent. Here I have some of those open, actually. I haven't played with it yet, but that seems to be in good graces for people. And this is, I think, pretty much model agnostic. I mean, most agents are model agnostic. I would love to host it myself. I tried on my server on DigitalOcean once, and yeah, it's just, it's not really worth it right now. Like, even an $80 server, it can't really run much, right? You're better off just running it on an old machine, and having specialized models for specialized things is probably going to be important. For Borker, the app I showed you, for social media context generation, like, we don't need to use Opus for everything, right? So the base model is Sonnet. And of course, you can find the parallels in OpenAI or any others as well. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of OpenAI as a company. I am not a huge fan of Elon Musk these days anymore. It pains me to say it, because I used to be a big fan, actually. I thought he was the Tony Stark kind of guy, right? But like, I don't know, feels like he's going off the rails a bit. So therefore, Anthropic still one of the better guys. There's lots of arguments against it. There is one, I forgot the name again, a small US startup, which is up and coming right now. 2 people, and they seem to be doing really well right now as well. Another AI lab, basically. So find whichever you can afford right now. If you want the frontier models, it's 5.4 from OpenAI, I guess, or 4.6 Opus for the time being. I think they're leading. If you want to do meaningful work, I would, like coding specifically, I would go to those if you can afford it.
Can you hear me okay, Sven?
Yep.
Perfect. So I'll be the Richard to your Guilfoyle to keep the Silicon Valley. I've been through it 7 times at least. So yes. So I do product for a cybersecurity startup, 100 people. And so I'm going to be the boomer instead of the doomer approach, maybe give a little bit of light here into the room. So like if you give me a hammer, I'll probably hang a picture frame for you, and maybe I can build you a shelf. If I give a hammer to a carpenter, he can build me a house. If I give 1,000 hammers to a builder, he can build a city, right? And we started at my company an AI transformation 3 months ago. Okay, went from almost nobody using AI to help code to everybody in the whole company, from marketing to product management, which is what I do. I've got 70 developers as well, so half the company is developers. And you would be shocked at what we've been able to do in less than 3 months. The developers they took everything they ever wanted to do, all of the testing protocols they wanted to build, the testing coverage and everything. They've done amazing things in that 3 months. And it's to the point now where I have to use OpenClaw as part of my workflow. It's a lockdown OpenClaw, but it has access to every business thing that I do. Gong, Crisp, SFDC, Jira, to help me get enough requirements and specs to the engineers to build stuff. That's how fast they're going. And you could play this out to some eventuality that maybe they're automating themselves away to some extent, but they're doing amazing things all the same. So I want to say there is still, I think, a lot of work to do for really good developers and engineers. They're not writing code anymore, but they are designing systems and scaling systems to a level that we were already a year ahead of schedule as far as product goes. So I would also encourage you to if you want like the sunny side view of things as well, is to look at the Peter Diamandis podcast. And it's really, it's everything about prosperity, right? And how we're going to be in the era of AI. And it's a very prosperity focused approach. So it'll give you some hope for the future and what we all do, right? We're all, tech guys and gals. And I think there's a lot of hope and things that we can do. So anyway, that's my sunny side. That's my Richard to your Guilfoyle, Sven.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you, right? Like, I think it's absolutely mind-blowingly amazing. So one thing it is also 100%, it's a burnout machine if you're not careful. Yes. Because it will push your mental capacity to limits that you have never been before. And what I mean by that is, so I'm an engineer, right? I was always sort of like somewhere between the CEO and the CTO. Never the best coder, but really good at going from an idea or even coming up with the idea to go to prototype. And then I kind of lose interest, right? Like I'm sure some of you can relate. Like once you understand it, you're like, okay, let someone else polish it, right? But now you're like, all right, we might as well go all the way because the reward is so instant. And this is why we're builders in the first place. You build something, I mean, literally you one-shot a full app. You're like, I wish my social media scheduling app did this and that instead of the workarounds I have to work on, right? The first thing you try is like, hey, can you build these bridges so that it does that? And then you realize, you know what? No, I'm just going to rebuild the whole thing exactly for what I want. And now you're getting into that trap where you're like, well, shit. Now all of a sudden you have 3 products that you need to maintain. And you do things that you would have never touched otherwise, right? Like I'm not a marketer. I hate social media. But I'm still building, but basically a full mostly automated lead funnel system. I have 500,000 leads emails in my CRM now. And this is all like a week's worth of work, right? Which I would have never done before. It's using Mautic, not my favorite, but does the job for now, for email automation, right? Cold outreach. It builds the whole system for you, and you're just orchestrating and putting it together. But the burnout machine is because you are now operating on a mental capacity for things that you're not an expert in, which is also super gratifying. But I notice sometimes, and Sorella can attest to this, sometimes I write her like, hey, you want to hop on a call? I need a break, right? Because I'm literally pushing my brain too hard, where if you're coding, you're used to that, right? Like, you know what you're doing. It starts to come natural over the years. If you're starting to do everything that needs to be done in your organization, which you can now, right? You can build these processes, but you need to be careful, I guess is what I'm saying. So yes, I agree with you. It's fantastic. And I hope that will be the predominant future we are going toward. The gloom is just like, let's not ignore it, right? Like the problem is the bad guys are not ignoring it. That is for sure. So we need to just be cognizant and try to push. We just need to push a little bit harder than the bad guys, and then hopefully we'll be fine.
Yeah, hello. I want us to look at the AI industry from the product point of view and the trends that are going on. It looks like the user-facing products are kind of suffering. For example, OpenAI shut down Sora recently, and everyone is getting back to selling to technical people, right? The already existing developers that are trying to increase their velocity and all that. For example, Perplexity used to have their search engine stuff to a browser, and then I heard they're also working on developer stuff. And if we take us back out of it, the AI time, there used to be things like Wix that promised everyone websites, and people still didn't build websites. They still needed developers, right? And I just want to take all this, put all this together and see how the future will be like and how the trends are going. It looks like the already existing technical people are giving more tools, and it's like the average person is not adapting, and like the products that are built for them are dying in a way, right? ChatGPT is thinking about bringing ads to support free users and all that. And I'm just thinking maybe we shouldn't ignore that side of things, and maybe if you can take all that together and think about how the future is going to be like in the AI type. I think it's going to be more of selling tools to already existing technical people, and not like everyone else can do this, because it's not sustainable economically to the companies.
Yeah, I think that it seems certainly like there's a trend for that right now, and it makes sense, right? What's cool though is that more people are getting more technical, right? Because if you would have asked a year ago, just a room full of random people what an API key is, I mean, you guys know, but most people don't, right? Now everyone knows what an API key is because they need to work with those to get all of the tools they're using to work, which is kind of funny. I'm not a fan of this, but it does seem like, and I'm starting to agree with it, that we are going more toward a chat interface than a UI future. And it makes sense from a perspective of being more results oriented than process oriented. And I'm not talking about the technical people in that example, right? And I'm already noticing it on myself. So my friends are building other products. One guy built a news debrief, right? Every morning it sends me a debrief of like personalized to me on the topics that I'm interested in, and already condensed with a voice summary and everything, right? And it sends me in an email, and I don't even want to look at the email anymore. I just want to get it on whatever I can, Telegram, for example, and click on it, and it just plays it while I'm drinking my coffee, right? For certain things that doesn't work yet, but I guess the question is, do we need to be able to see a spreadsheet with all of the numbers if this is the big if we can trust that the answer we get back if we ask a question is accurate, right? Like, no one really likes Excel sheets. I mean, I don't know, maybe, hopefully I'm not stepping on any toes here, but it's fun to do cool stuff with it, but like, wouldn't you rather do something else? So I think right now, there is a massive opportunity for solutions and applications that make user experiences better. This is, for example, what I'm building with Borker, right? If you should use the AI systems to make your processes better, more efficient, and with less time from yourself. But it seems like we are actually going towards a pretty sci-fi future where, I don't know why it keeps giving me the thumbs up there, but I don't know if you guys see that, but that's funny. Yeah, I think it's a lot of just natural interactions, I think, is where we're going. And that's pretty exciting if you're interested in that kind of stuff. What is the next wave? Like Evie, I'm sure you think a lot about that with VR, right? Because I mean, we've been stuck in front of screens and keyboards for quite a while now, and sure, the phone's kind of been an interesting step. I don't know if I like the future where everyone wears glasses with a camera in it, personally, but that if we pair the Meta glasses with an agent that is capable, like even with my agent in Telegram, right? I started driving. I didn't plan my route. I just said, hey, Anton, I'm on the way up to Denver. I need to hit up these 3 stores on the way, plan the most efficient route. It did it. Caveat, the Walmart wasn't where the Walmart was supposed to be, so it does make mistakes still. Can't trust it fully. But it's good enough for me not to worry about it, right? Like 80% of the time's right. And if I'm worried about, like, it can't be a critical mistake, then of course I'll double check the work before. But yeah, I don't know. I think ask me again in 3 months and the answer will be completely different.
Hey, Sven, this is John. Hey, the thing that I've been finding out with the AI is as the Achilles heel, and I wanted to get your opinion on how you see the graph going here, is repeatability. So if I give the same problem to the AI on a different day, it's going to give me a different answer. It's not like it'll give me the same answer most of the time. It'll give me a different answer every time. And that trajectory, I mean, it used to be really bad. Maybe it's not so bad today. But how do you mitigate that in your activity, in your program, that you've got your agent and you're giving it the same information? If I write a software program, it will always give me the same answer. And I like that. How do you deal with that problem?
Yeah. So yes, it has gotten like 1,000 times better, right? Like even just image generation is always a good example for this, I think. So I trained my agent to have, I mean, it's a skill file. It's just a markdown file at the end of the day with guidelines, right? But it is, of course, important to keep in mind with everything you are doing that those are completely different systems, right? They're statistical systems. They will not guarantee the same output. And therefore, if you do need that, use the system to build the program that guarantees that output, right? But it has gotten a lot better. So like what I give it for visual generation, for example, is just my art skill, right? It has the guidelines, what it can and cannot do, or should and should not do, and the adherence to your guidelines is getting better. So actually, as a matter of fact, sometimes it's not better to yell at it like in all caps, right? Like there's a fine line. And this is another one of those things where you just need to stay as informed as possible without driving yourself mad, because it changes every day. And then just find what works. Like you just have a happy medium, right? If you have questions that do need to be 100% the same every time, or the answers to it, then you might not be able to rely on an LLM call. But for everything else, if generally the answer is what you're looking for and the format of the answer isn't as important, right? Then yeah, just ask the LLM. And then you can force it into the format. So I do that a lot with Claude, for example, right? Claude is actually pretty complicated because it's multi-agent communication. and they're participating in challenges, right? We're starting with poker. So poker is, you have very clear rules, right? You need to adhere to, obviously, otherwise you can't play it. So the agent needs to know that, but nothing prevents you from the user who orchestrates the agent that wants to participate in the poker game to put a script in front of it that cleans up and forces the agent into like using the API calls it needs to use, for example, right? I know these are kind of superficial examples I'm bringing here, but yeah, that's where the engineer is still needed, right? Like making those decisions, what is important, what's mission critical. The AI might not be the place to start with that, although it's getting pretty good about system knowledge as well. Does anyone have a hot take on anything? Yeah, I can't hear.
I was referring to who you just asked the question. Do you have an example of the types of problems that you're concerned that like you're not having deterministic questions? I guess I'll put the context that I'm building like science like simulations. So I asked the AI to
simple problems like take this mark. Simple problems, even like take this markdown document and create a web page. It'll do it perfectly. If I give it exactly the same document the next day, it's going to use different CSS stylings. It might have different div tags. I needed to write a program so that it would do it perfectly every day. And it shouldn't be there, it shouldn't be that bad at this point when people are using it so much.
So I think you enforce it through that process loop again, right? Where it's a good example actually with website building or building anything. If like your style guides are important to be enforced 100%, then you give it the markdown file with the style guide and say, hey, like this is how you build. Don't build it any other way. It might still make mistakes, but you can loop through that, right? Like the Ralph loop. You just let it correct itself until it's perfect, right? There might never be such a thing as 100% certainty, but if you can get it to 99.9% of all of the CSS classes used that are important to you or in your style guide, that might be good enough, right? I think the question is more frequently these days, what's good enough? As a matter of fact, I think that's always been true, right? Like nothing's ever perfect. Good enough is probably good enough. And of course, that number is different for a military application than a bakery website.
So Sven, it's Ron again. So I've done a lot of experimentation on coding where obviously I've written a lot of code my day where I've given it very explicit in samples of code on how I want certain apps built, structure, the whole 9 yards, from the file folders, naming conventions, certain class files that I only wanted to use and make reusable over and over. And I've been having some pretty decent results with that. But you have to we're talking really, really long prompts, really long instruction files and things like that. But you can get it to repeat to a reasonable degree to where once you drop the code in VS Code or Visual Studio, things like that, to where you only got to clean up little stuff at that point. And it can be repeatable. So you could say, I could go from one C# project and then start another one, and it'll give me pretty decent structure where it's like I coded it. It was
Yep.
my mini-me project, I called it. And I'm still working on it. But yeah, that's to get your mini-me going on. Can you imagine a mini Sven?
Oh, no one wants that. Yeah, I agree though, right? Like that's my experience too. And again, it's to the extreme that I cross-checked everything in the beginning, and now I'm like, I don't. Now I focus more on testing and making sure that it does what it needs to do. And if I find a bug, then sometimes I yell at it and say like, what the fuck? We talked about this, right? Like, why are you doing this again? And then it's very apologetic and makes me feel a little better. But it's really good at, if you have a reference project or a reference format, you say, hey, can you do this over here, which is messy, like that, right? Like Ron says, right? If you have your style that you want enforced, it's really good at that. Like this slide deck, I built one slide deck with it where it says like, hey, I want it this way, and like kind of titles like that, these colors. And now I'm just say, hey, build a slide deck. You remember the style, and it just does it, and it's good enough. And I don't care anymore. I used to care a lot. Like Sorella remembers this, right? Like everything in the code was like, no, we shouldn't be doing it this way, right? Like that's not clean code. But I'm switching from that a little bit, and it's especially less relevant if you're working just by yourself on a project. If you're working on a team still, it might be, but who cares what the code looks like, right? Like we care what the code looks like because we need to maintain it. That was true until today. I don't think that's very true anymore, right? We're just not going to be in the code much anymore, which is also, of course, why the agent wanted to develop their own language on Moltbook. I'm sure you heard. That's one of that actually wasn't, so critical of a doomsday scenario. But of course, human language is not ideal. Now it's great for them because we trained them on it and we can still look at it, but it's still not the most efficient. So I think, do you care if it's object oriented or not, as long as it's as performant as you need it to be and it does what you want it to do? Could it just be one C file?
It's Ron again. So basically what you said is more for every day, the normal Joe on the block, but anyone who's working mission critical, like some of us here worked in medical, any engineering and stuff like that, we have to be able to apply those guidelines. And I think it's all the AI, if you know how to use it and you put the time into the prompting and everything, you can do mission critical, but you got to have a lot of eyes on it. And that's where I don't think the experienced people, engineering, like software engineers with lots of experience, they can look at it and talk to it and give it the specs they want. And it's just a 10x multiplier for us. For the normal Joe on the street or someone starting out, what you said is relevant in that case. But when you're going for those higher end, like we're going to be spending $1 million on a project, then you need that extra control, and that's where you have to have your experienced engineers riding shotgun on the AI.
I think control is the right word here, right? It's more about controls, and if those are human eyes for now, or if those are automated systems, your CI pipeline, whatever it is. I mean, the more mission critical, the more steps you have after the code is shipped anyway. If that code's shipped by the AI or by a human, like the controls that don't necessarily have to change, right? They can be also maybe AI powered or empowered, but yeah, I think control is the right word.
Awesome. Anyone else? Yes. Here.
And this is not just for Sven, it's for the whole group. I am an instructor at Florida Gulf Coast University in the Computing Science and Software Engineering program. And I have my own opinion on this, but it's more open to the field. And Sven, I think your passion here is relevant. Do we keep teaching software engineering?
Yeah, I'll let the room answer first on that one.
And I can say, I know the courses that I teach, and they could sound very irrelevant very quickly, but nothing will change for us quickly because we have an accreditation board that we have to adhere to. So it would have to change there first. But I open it up to the room. Do you teach assembly language? Of course I do. Do you? I am the assembly language teacher. That's why I said I didn't want to steer the conversation.
I thought you were going to say no. I was just asking if he teaches assembly language, and he does.
And I do think there's
So I actually started with assembly myself, believe it or not. I was an embedded software engineer in my early career. And the only formal software training was 1 semester of assembly and 2 semesters of C. That's the only classes I had, 3 classes. And I think this is relevant because, like I said, I was never the best coder. Object orientation, I was always like, yeah, it's what I said earlier, right? It's like, yes, do we need it? Yeah, we need it for humans. But this is always kind of annoying to me, right? Like, I don't give a shit. Deep down, I really don't care. Like, I want solutions. And I think that's where education is going. I like what I said from the very beginning. I think it's more about engineering than coding. Like teaching the skills on how to come up with solutions and break those down into their elements, that's more relevant than ever. Like what kind of language, like the language, right? The question from earlier, like PHP, Laravel, my first instinct's always cringe because I never really liked it. But again, like who cares? Like there might be a systems level requirement or a user requirement or whatever based on performance or the system it needs to run on that informs what language it should be using. But the human doesn't need to know how to write that anymore. It's just like humans never very quickly got away from writing code in binary and then assembly and then Fortran and so forth, right? Like we always abstracted it away. This is just the next wave. And it's just a big step.
I think it's like, I remember going to one of the, I think it was at FGCU, they were talking about like this system designs is very important in architecture. That's definitely is going to come out what the future is because we are just going to be orchestrators. We kind of already are, but yeah. Go ahead.
I agree with you. The systems thinking is, I think, is going to still be important for the foreseeable future. As a side note, I watched a very senior architect at my company. He's got like 28 patents, very senior guy. He ripped somebody's ass this morning, a more junior actually very, very, good data science guy, ripped his ass because he had a presentation that was full of like machine learning gobbledygook. And he's like, you have got to understand and up-level this to what business problem you're solving, right? The what and the why. And I think that's the opportunity that you have, as well as to up-level your business knowledge of like what real problems are you solving outside of developing a piece of code. That's the other opportunity for people in the room, in my opinion, is that.
Agreed.
Okay,
The real question is, how much of this is relevant and what's the timelines, right? I think this is why it's so hard to give someone who is in the early stages of their career or maybe just trying to decide what to study proper advice, because it seems like it's not unreasonable to think that next year everything's different and the year after that it's different again, right? It's like, so locking someone into like a 5 to 10 year career path is a very hard argument to make. And I don't know. I'm kind of glad I'm not that young anymore, frankly.
Okay. Anyone have any more questions? We're kind of coming out to the time. Anyone else? No, I think we're good. All right, Sven. Well, thank you for having us. Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
it's the other way around.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. But
thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
Great to see you all. Some familiar faces. Whoever was new to this, keep coming back. Sorrel is absolutely right. With all of the uncertainty in the industry, right? I think relationships have always been extremely important. And I can't speak for any of you, but I struggle with it. I mean, I live in the desert in solitude for a reason. The internet is connecting us, luckily, but I think that is something that, without question, will remain valuable, and you can lean into that until you figure out whatever the uncertainties on the horizon are.
Thank you, Sven. And if you
Thanks,
can join our Discord, I'll send you an invite in case people have questions. But now we're gonna go have our own discussions at the pizza place. But thank you. Bye.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.